no longer allowed to act because you did that one so well that we can't see you as something else.
They have some issue back in the day? And does he need a career revamp?
And typecasted to the point where it's almost impossible for people to see me doing something else.
Alfonso Ribeiro just dropped the bomb on what really went down with Tyler Perry, and he's not the only one talking.
He showed up to my apartment and offered me $100 grand to take my clothes off me. He said, I don't even need to touch you. I just want to see you.
For over 15 years, people were scratching their heads, wondering why Alfonso, with all his talent and TV fame, never popped up in a Tyler Perry movie or show. No cameo, no guest spot, nothing. It was weird, right? Now, new whispers about Perry are starting to bubble up again, and Alfonso's silence back then is finally making sense.
Actor and filmmaker Tyler Perry sued for $260 million over allegations. The complaint filed in Los Angeles accuses Perry of creating a, quote, coercive, exploitative dynamic with actor Dixon.
Alfonso never came out and pointed fingers directly at Perry, but if you line up the comments he made years ago with what other actors are spilling now, it all starts to paint a different picture. Silence doesn't always mean nothing happened. Sometimes it means you were shut down before you could ever speak. So what was Alfonso really saying before the memes, before the reruns, and way before these new allegations started popping up? Back then, Alfonso Ribeiro was everywhere, lighting up America's screens as Carlton Banks on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He wasn't just the funny sidekick, he was the show's comedic anchor, with that sharp timing and the Carlton dance that turned into a whole cultural wave.
It's not unusual to be alone.
But when the show wrapped in 1996, so did Alfonso's momentum. Hollywood didn't want him as anything but Carlton. Offers dried up, and directors only saw him as the preppy, goofy guy, not as a serious actor who could lead a movie or take on bigger roles. It was rough, and Alfonso, still in his 20s, was left hustling to revive a career that stalled the minute his most famous role ended.
The problem for me has always been that in terms of acting, most of the world can't get past Carlton.
On top of that, he was grinding through this dry spell during the early 2000s, a messy time in Hollywood when the industry was shifting, but not always in a fair way. Big studios wanted shiny new faces and were chasing trends instead of respecting talent and legacy. Behind the scenes, whispers about gatekeepers locking doors in Hollywood were getting louder, and that's exactly where Tyler Perry enters the story. People close to Alfonso say that around the mid to late 2000s, he tried to link up with the rising black entertainment wave, eyeing Tyler Perry Studios as his shot to flip the script on his career. At that time, Perry was blowing up, stacking box office hits, locking in loyal fans, buying his own Atlanta studio, and flexing more creative power than nearly anyone in black TV. For Alfonso, who was getting iced out in Hollywood and hungry for a rebrand, Perry's empire looked like the golden ticket. But that connection, it never happened. And for years, nobody really got why. Alfonso didn't drop Perry's name, but people who were paying close attention, especially after Christian Keyes shared leaked texts showing S propositions tied to getting cast and staying cast, started connecting dots. The timing was way too sharp to ignore. Alfonso had nothing left to gain by keeping quiet, and as more folks began to speak up about coercion, getting blackballed, and shady power plays, Alfonso's old cryptic posts started looking like straight-up warnings. So what really went down between Alfonso and Perry? This time, Alfonso isn't holding back. By the late 2000s, Tyler Perry wasn't just another filmmaker. He was an institution. He had BT shows dominating screens, a multi-million-dollar studio built on old Confederate land, and a grip on Black Hollywood that made him the gatekeeper for actors who felt shut out by the mainstream machine. But with all that power came questions, and the whispers turned into real conversations. Alfonso, who once ruled primetime TV, reportedly tried to step into Perry's circle during this time, looking to reinvent himself and land roles that would prove he was more than just Carlton. On paper, it looked like a perfect match. Perry was known for giving people second chances, and Alfonso was ready to work. But insiders claim Perry's casting couch wasn't always about who had the most talent. Behind closed doors, it was a different game, and not everyone was willing to play it. In 2021, actor Christian Keys dropped a bomb when he publicly revealed he got propositioned inappropriately in exchange for roles.
That he showed up to my apartment and offered me 100 grand to take my clothes off. He said, I don't even need to touch you. I just want to see you.
That shook the table. Around this same time, people noticed Alfonso's social media vibes started to shift. His posts got sharper, and his words turned cryptic, leaving fans guessing what was really going on. In one now-deleted post, he wrote, "Sometimes the audition is just a setup. Be careful who's really watching." In another, he said, "I didn't come this far to sell my dignity." He didn't name names. But after Christian Keys' revelations, folks started wondering if Alfonso got approached in the same dirty way and chose to walk away instead. Tyler Perry's supporters say his success turned him into an easy target. They claim actors mad about being overlooked or just looking for someone to blame. But others are pointing out the obvious pattern. Multiple young, attractive male actors stepping forward with stories that sound way too similar, talking about being pressured or iced out after rejecting alleged advances tied to getting cast.
These events occurred while Mr. Dixon was employed as a series regular on the Tyler Perry show, The Oval, while Mr. Perry held direct control over his employment, compensation, and creative opportunity.
If even a piece of this toxic culture was happening at Perry's studio, it flips the whole narrative. And for someone like Alfonso, who spent years protecting his clean, family-friendly image, compromising his dignity for a role would have been a hard no. That could be why we never saw Alfonso popping up on a Tyler Perry show or grabbing a guest role, even though he was a household name from Fresh Prince. Meanwhile, lesser-known actors were sliding into those roles while he stayed on the sidelines. Sometimes not getting the job is the biggest sign you passed the real test, one that had nothing to do with acting and everything to do with keeping your integrity intact. As fresh details from the current lawsuit keep dropping, it's looking like Alfonso saw the game for what it really was way before the public did. On June 15th, 2025, actor Derek Dixon filed a bombshell lawsuit in Los Angeles Superior Court, accusing Tyler Perry of multiple acts of misconduct. The lawsuit is demanding a jaw-dropping $260 million in damages and lays out a disturbing pattern of alleged behavior that stretches from 2019 to 2021, with the fallout bleeding into 2024. In an industry already rocked by big cases like Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey, this lawsuit hits different because it's targeting one of the most powerful and untouchable black moguls in the game. According to court filings, Perry and Dixon first crossed paths in 2019 at an industry event. At the time, Dixon was just starting out, a fresh face with no major credits under his belt. Documents say Perry came up to Dixon himself, asking for his number and telling him he wanted to help him get an acting shot. Mr. Perry handpicked Mr. Dixon from a crowd, the complaint reads, saying Perry told him he saw potential. Not long after, Dixon claims Perry cast him in Ruthless, but it was during or right after working on Ruthless that things allegedly took a dark turn. The complaint paints a picture of Perry initiating what Dixon describes as a coercive, one-sided relationship hiding behind the mask of mentorship. According to Dixon, when Ruthless wrapped, Perry invited him to his personal home in Atlanta, and that night, Dixon ended up getting intoxicated. Dixon says he asked if he could crash in a guest room, but what happened next is chilling. The lawsuit claims Mr. Perry followed Mr. Dixon into the guest room and began touching his thighs. Dixon says he rejected Perry's advances, but the unwanted interest didn't stop.
Then he claims that while he was asleep, Perry climbed into bed with him and tried to initiate. Dixon says he tried to distance himself from Perry, but he was offered a role on Perry's show, The Oval.
This, according to Dixon, was the first time Perry allegedly crossed physical boundaries, and he believes it set the stage for everything that followed. By the time Dixon landed a role in The Oval, Perry's high-profile BET drama, things allegedly escalated even further. Behind the glitz of the studio lights, the red carpets, and the second chance promises, these allegations are pulling back the curtain on what might really be happening behind closed doors. Dixon landed the role of Dale on The Oval, but what happened behind the scenes is what's turning heads. According to the lawsuit, Perry started sending suggestive texts and making flirtatious calls to Dixon, pushing personal questions about his preferences and fantasies. These alleged texts, with screenshots spreading across X and popping up in reports from Reuters, the Associated Press, and TMZ, have turned this already explosive case into a social media firestorm. But here's the catch. Text can be faked, edited, or ripped out of context. Reuters reported that some of these messages were included in the official legal filings, adding weight to the claims. One message allegedly read, "What's it going to take for you to have guiltless S? If real." That line would back up Dixon's claims of coercion. The Associated Press also cited messages where Perry allegedly told Dixon, "No straight man would be going on walks with you or cooking dinner for you unless they wanted to F you. I would F you." Another message reportedly said, "I would hope that you would let someone hold you and make love to you. You are missing the best years of your life, my friend." TMZ published more screenshots circulating on X, including one that read, "I feel so good, but I don't like being horny. I feel sorry for the first person that flirts with me." These messages, while not independently verified, paint a picture of an escalating interest that was blurring every professional boundary. They match up with what Dixon is claiming in his lawsuit, that what started as mentorship quickly flipped into manipulation and pressure, turning opportunity into a toxic power play. Social media has exploded with polarized reactions. Some users think these texts are damning, while others question if they're even real. But no matter what side people are on, the court filings keep pulling the spotlight back to the allegations. Back to the court documents, things get even darker. In March 2020, Perry allegedly choked Dixon during a private altercation.
This is what he says that Perry told him. Dixon said that Perry told him, quote, that he liked being choked. That was after Dixon's character was choked by a cast member in a scene on the Oval. Perry also allegedly said, "Why do you twist your hips when you walk? How can I get a day of Dixon?"
Later that year, another incident allegedly happened on the Oval set, where Perry is accused of entering a trailer and groping Dixon. The most shocking allegation dropped in June 2021, and it's the one people can't stop talking about. Dixon says he got invited back to Perry's Atlanta home, and while staying in the guest house, dressed only in his underwear, Perry came into his room to say goodnight. According to Dixon, that's when Perry hugged him, pulled down his underwear, grabbed his backside, and told him to just relax. Dixon claims he tried to defuse the situation by switching the topic, but by then he felt trapped with nowhere to run. The lawsuit says Perry made it crystal clear, ignoring him would cost Dixon everything. According to Dixon, Perry straight up said, "If you ignore me, your character dies." That's heavy. The lawsuit also says Perry dangled potential projects like bait, using them as leverage. Specifically, Dixon claims Perry offered to help produce a TV series he had written called Losing It. Perry allegedly showed interest in funding the pilot, but only if Dixon remained loyal. Dixon now says it was never a real opportunity, just another manipulative tactic to keep him quiet. Mr. Perry sought the one thing his wealth and influence could not purchase: a relationship with a man who would remain silent, the lawsuit reads. That line alone has people rethinking everything. Dixon says he finally filed a formal complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission in June 2024, claiming he was diagnosed with PTSD from Perry's actions and eventually had to leave the Oval because the emotional and psychological toll was too much to handle. The lawsuit doesn't stop at Perry alone. Dixon is also going after Tyler Perry Studios and TPS Production Services as co-defendants, accusing them of negligent hiring, supervision, and retention. While Perry himself is the only one accused of the physical and verbal abuse, the complaint makes it clear that the system around him enabled this behavior. In one of the most cutting lines of the entire complaint, the case paints Perry not just as a powerful mogul, but as a man who allegedly used his power to manipulate, corner, and silence those who trusted him. Dixon isn't holding back, comparing Tyler Perry to other fallen giants in entertainment like Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, Sean Diddy Combs, Kevin Spacey, Roger Ailes, and others who fell from power hard. The complaint states Mr. Perry's success has led him to believe that money and influence can get him whatever he wants. But Tyler Perry's legal team came out swinging. His attorney, Matthew Boyd, dropped a public statement saying, "This is an individual who got close to Tyler Perry for what now appears to be nothing more than setting up a scam, but Tyler will not be shaken down, and we are confident these fabricated claims will fail." The pushback is loud, but so is the case. The lawsuit is now public, and unless it gets dismissed or settled behind closed doors, Perry might have to face these serious allegations in court for the first time in his career. That's huge. Meanwhile, it's been over a decade since Alfonso Ribeiro walked away from scripted TV. Fans always thought it was his choice, that he wanted a quieter family life, or just preferred hosting over risking another typecast role. But behind the polished game show smiles, something else was going on. Because in Hollywood, silence doesn't always mean safety. It can be a survival strategy. Alfonso isn't new to the politics of fame. After Fresh Prince, he got boxed in by a character the world loved, but the industry refused to see beyond. Carlton made him rich, but it also made him invisible when it came to serious roles. So when Alfonso started dipping back into the industry in the 2000s, he quickly learned talent alone wasn't enough to break back in. One of his close associates later hinted that Alfonso saw exactly what was going on behind certain studio doors and decided to walk away instead of getting pulled into something that would cost him more than it was worth. Sometimes, stepping back is the loudest move you can make in an industry that wants you silent. No messy headlines, no loud drama, just a quiet exit. But it's the why that matters here. The truth is, Alfonso likely stayed silent because he believed speaking out wouldn't help, or worse, it would blow back on him hard. By the 2010s, Tyler Perry wasn't just another Hollywood producer, he was untouchable. A billionaire backed by Oprah, BT, and every major network that mattered. Calling him out would have been career suicide, especially for someone already fighting to get back into the spotlight. And let's keep it real. Black actors in Hollywood don't always get to speak freely, especially when it comes to powerful black figures in the industry. The fear of being labeled difficult, bitter, or jealous is real. The fear of being erased completely, even worse. That's why Alfonso kept it coded. Cryptic tweets, half hints, quiet unfollows, and a silent refusal to collaborate. It was all there, but hidden in plain sight. For years, most people missed the message. But now that Christian Keys has dropped receipts, and now that Derek Dixon has filed a $260 million lawsuit accusing Perry of harassment and professional coercion, Alfonso's silence doesn't look like indifference anymore. It looks like restraint, and maybe even self-preservation.
Dixon is suing Tyler Perry, the individual, as well as his production studio. That studio is called TPS Production Services, LLC. That stands for Tyler Perry Studios in Action, LLC. And he is looking for $260 million.
In this new light, Alfonso's choice not to work with Perry doesn't look like a missed bag. It looks like a quiet act of resistance. He may not have aired out the details, but 15 years later, his decision to stay away stands as its own testimony. And now people can't help but wonder, how many other actors walked away quietly too? How many stayed silent because they never felt safe enough to say why? This isn't just about one man's career anymore. It's about the hidden stories in Hollywood nobody wanted to hear until now. When actors like Alfonso Ribeiro drop indirect hints, Hollywood listens, but it listens quietly. But when someone like Christian Keys steps up and speaks directly, the mask starts to slip off. That's exactly what happened in 2021 when Keys went public about the casting couch culture creeping behind some of Tyler Perry's productions. He didn't sugarcoat a thing, and his confession hit the industry like a lightning bolt. Keys' leaks and references to coercion lined up disturbingly well with Alfonso's old cryptic posts. And suddenly, all those quiet warnings about getting boxed out, turned away, or punished for not playing the game took on a whole new, darker meaning. Alfonso and Christian are two very different actors, but their timelines crossed in the mid-2000s when both were trying to get back into acting. Both were black men trying to work with a studio that claimed to uplift them, and both, in their own way, ended up walking away quietly. And now with Derek Dixon's explosive $260 million lawsuit, another layer has been peeled back. These stories aren't just random incidents. Together, they reveal a pattern. Young black male actors stepping into rooms looking for opportunity, only to find boundaries they weren't willing to cross. This isn't about a single text or one awkward conversation. It's about the cumulative pressure, the jokes that weren't really jokes, the suggestions that weren't really suggestions. These weren't innocent misunderstandings. They were power moves dressed up as kindness. And for actors like Alfonso Ribeiro, the most chilling part might not be what happened, but what didn't happen. Because sometimes the roles you don't get and the doors that stay closed say more about what's really going on than any headline ever could. No Tyler Perry role, no guest spots, not even a single cameo in a system that claimed to uplift black talent. That absence, looking back now, speaks volumes. When you line it up with Christian Key's rejecting Perry's alleged advances, or with the chilling claims now pouring out in lawsuits, a bigger picture starts to form, and it makes Alfonso's long silence look not just reasonable, but strategic. Maybe that's why Alfonso is finally speaking now. Not through a messy press conference, not in a clickbait expose, but by letting people connect the dots he's been quietly dropping for over a decade. What looked like bitterness now feels like boundaries. What felt like distance now looks like protection. And what once read as silence is starting to sound a whole lot like survival. Alfonso didn't give us a viral headline. He didn't name drop in some wild tell-all interview, but maybe he didn't need to. Because in an industry where silence is often seen as weakness, his quiet refusal to play the game might have been the strongest move of all. While others chased the spotlight, Alfonso walked away from something millions of actors would give anything for, all because of what he likely saw behind the curtain. He was never loud, never messy, but the choices he made, the rooms he avoided, and the small things he did say tell a story. A story about boundaries, about dignity over deals. And now, with lawsuits stacking up and testimonies from once silent actors finally surfacing, Alfonso's past choices don't look like career detours anymore. They look like warnings we all missed. Because when the truth starts spilling out, the people who walked away quietly are often the ones we should have listened to from the start. If you found this deep dive eye-opening, don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video with someone who needs to see it, and comment your thoughts below. Let us know. Do you think Alfonso was protecting himself all these years? We read every comment. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.